Welcome back, everybody, to Satisfactionist Live. I am your host, Ben Olmos, and today, Tuesday, we are going to be getting into the topic of college education, and specifically around free education, or really why folks might want to go to school and get educated. So the reason that I wanted to kind of dive into this tonight, and we actually don't have a panel on this one, but that's quite okay, because this is something that is one of those topics that's kind of near and dear to my heart. One of my other things that I do is work as an adjunct professor. It's something I've been doing for about 15 years now. And over that time, really kind of over the course of my own, getting a degree, moving on to finishing my advanced degree, a lot has changed. When I first went back to school, it was 1996, which doesn't seem like that long ago for me, but for maybe some of you out there checking this out, you don't even remember 1996. But a lot has changed since then, and more we keep hearing about free college education, or subsidizing education, making it cheaper, making it more accessible and affordable for students. And no doubt it is something that can be expensive, and it really just kind of depends on what you want to do with a college degree. Something that I read recently was back in 2019. So in 2019, we had $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. And, that's a lot. It's at least $1 trillion more than it was when I first started. And, this is a number that just keeps continuing to increase. And so, people are beginning to ask themselves, we've got to do something different. We got to change the game. And I don't totally disagree with that, but I also don't necessarily agree with the fact that we've got to have free education, because at the end of the day, it really depends on what you want to do. And there are free education options out there. And when I say it depends on what you want to do, there's a lot of people who kind of have this perception that somehow a college degree is an instant ticket to a better life. And nothing could be further from the truth. A college degree is going to give you a lot of information and a lot of wisdom and knowledge about a particular topic, but it isn't going to miraculously change your destiny, because there's a lot more that goes into working, being good at what you do, far beyond just the degree itself. And there's a lot you have to bring to the game, and that includes what you got to bring to the game for college, right? So when we think about, the reasons why we're going to school, what is ultimately the incentive of doing that? Well, for me, it was very specific. So my own venture into school. So, I finished my PhD in 2018. And, there's a lot of people who ask, why did you do it? Why did you want to go down that path? Were you going to get a raise? And the answer was no to the raise. But so, I came out of high school. In fact, I ended up testing out of high school because, a story I always like to tell is, I passed all my classes on the way to my car when I was in high school. And basically, I had a high school career that wasn't very stellar. Primarily because it wasn't really something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the social interaction, but I didn't necessarily enjoy the work that was there. It wasn't anything that I was, too heavily interested in. And it really didn't kind of touch on things that I wanted to do. So I got to the point where I just tested out of high school and just started working, because to me, working and making money was a heck of a lot more interesting than sitting in a classroom and kind of being confined and chained to this institution that you had to go to. And it just overall wasn't very fun for me. And it was several years actually before I ended up going to college in the first place. But here was the incentive. So I started working for Coca-Cola, and I was making $5.50 an hour as a temp. And I eventually got converted to a full-time worker, and that was pretty fun. And I think I came in at like $21,000 or $22,000 a year, which at the time for me was like, incredible. And what came with the job were not only benefits, but this kind of pathway of opportunities. And what I mean by that is there were jobs that I noticed within the organization that I would be interested in doing, but every one of them said 5 to 7 years of experience and a college degree. And I didn't have a college degree. So I said, well, hey, if I go to school now, take me about 4 years to finish. And then once I'm done, I'll have the 5 years experience and a college degree. And, there's a very specific job that I wanted to get into. I always enjoyed the operations side of our business. So I wanted to kind of be in that world. And what I found going along the way was that I didn't end up ever getting into the job that I ultimately started going to school for. The point, though, is that there was an ROI for me. There was a reason to go. And the wonderful thing about working for a big company was they had a tuition reimbursement program. And that tuition reimbursement program is what helped to offset the cost for me. So the degree meant that I could move into a higher wage job. The tuition reimbursement meant that college wasn't going to cost me as much. And because there was a nonprofit school that was offering an accelerated undergraduate degree program, a shorter college actually here in Georgia, like the third oldest college in Georgia. It's a very old university, but they've definitely got some history and tenure here. And, a great opportunity, took it, did my bachelor's degree. I found out that I loved it. Like I really enjoyed going to school. So I took a year off, ended up going back for my MBA, finished my MBA, took a couple years off, didn't know that I wanted another degree. So I was interested in teaching, reached out to an old professor of mine back at where I did my MBA, and did my MBA at University of Phoenix, right? I know there's a lot of hassle that school gets. And some of it deserved, but others not so much. But anyway, I did my MBA there, and that's really kind of where I started teaching. And all of this time, like all of the degrees that I did, all of the education that I was taking on, and even the teaching and stuff like that. Like I went from the kid who was least likely to graduate high school to ultimately getting a PhD. So it is possible. However, that path that I took, going to both, nonprofit and for-profit colleges, having taught for both nonprofit and for-profit colleges, having, been on my own kind of underdog journey, if you will, all of that kind of exposed me to a lot of pluses and minuses when it comes to going to school. And so, when I think about that journey, right, and I kind of reflect on, well, who's going to school now, and who's interested in going to school now, and why are they doing it in the first place? It really comes down to what your motivations are. Why do you feel getting a degree is going to do something for you? Truth be told, I even though I did the path that I did, and I went for my PhD for two reasons. One, strategically as an ROI, I knew that I wanted to teach and I wanted to remain in a status where people would consider me if I'm applying for teaching work. And what I was finding more and more, because of so many folks getting MBAs and so many folks going through accelerated MBA programs, And even if they're not going through an accelerated MBA program, typically if you teach, you have to have 12 credit hours in the topic that you're teaching. So a lot of the faster MBAs don't give you those 12 credits in a concentrated area. So it does make it hard if you're going to teach with an MBA to do that. There's also certain schools will only hire professors from a certain level of accreditation. And so, you kind of, if your pursuit of doing an advanced degree is because you do want to teach, I would definitely make sure that you understand what those requirements are for the department that you want to ultimately teach in. If you're going to be, teaching music or teaching business or teaching chemistry, make sure that you know what those requirements are to get into those fields. And that way, when you finish your MBA, you become a little bit more of a marketable candidate. So my ROI for my PhD was to remain employed. My personal belief is that I'm not going to retire and I'm not going to stop working. Warren Buffett hasn't stopped working, and he certainly doesn't need any more money. And I figure I'm no Warren Buffett, but probably as engaged about the things that I like doing as he is. And so, for that reason, and most importantly, I pursued something that I was really interested in learning more about. I wanted to be an expert in this field. And there was also kind of a personal drive, a personal sense of accomplishment that I wanted for myself in moving in this direction. So, for all of those reasons, because I had a pathway for paying that back, I mean, like many, many college students that are out there, even though I've had some relief from tuition reimbursement, I could still buy a Tesla with my college loan, a nice Tesla. So, um, I'm in there. Part of my strategy was you have to have a way to pay this thing back. You can't just go rack up all this debt and then, in the pursuit of a higher education and not have an ROI. So, if you're going back to school, make sure that you have a plan. Make sure you understand what you've got to do to pay that money back in the way of work. Because, it's one thing to go get the education, get the experience. And let me tell you something, it's fun, especially if if you like the experience, it's fun while you're in it. But you gotta know how you're going to pay that money back. So this is very important to make sure of. And what we're seeing a lot these days are students who go to school with the anticipation of being able to get into a field that they want to be in, but they don't always have a connection to that field. They're not in it currently. They don't know anybody who's in it. They don't have any connections in the industry. And it can make it challenging and can make it difficult. Now, where it's not difficult is if you have a particular skill, if there's something that you know how to do that is unique to a particular industry, then you can almost write your own ticket. But if you're going, for example, let's say you're going for a master's degree in nonprofit organization management. Well, right away, nonprofit organizations aren't known for paying a lot of money. Also, you don't really have the bonus and incentive structures in organizations like that are going to create this pathway for higher earnings. So if you go rack up a $60,000 or $70,000 advanced degree in nonprofit nonprofit organization management, you better have saved a lot of money going into getting that degree, or you have a very good pathway for paying that off. And that may mean working more than one job and doing more than one thing. I teach. I definitely have more than just one job. But for me, I enjoy that. Like I enjoy the rhythm, if you will, of having a lot to do. If that's not your wiring, don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to have to come up with a plan to pay that back. Just last night, I was watching Dave Ramsey on YouTube and listening to these interviews. Oh my gosh. There was one person who had $80,000 in student loan debt and made like $15,000 a year. Another person, an orthodontist, had $1 million in student loan debt, um, and they were working on paying that back. And with a $250,000 a year salary, they had a plan. But I mean, that's huge, $1 million. And one other, this is the most disappointing case, was somebody who had racked up $475,000 in student loans and was going to medical school, didn't pass the boards, got released from his program, was not going to be graduating, will not have an MD, is working as a high school substitute chemistry teacher, and $475,000 in loans. I could not imagine. Like, that is incredibly hard, right? And I'm not saying that people are going to always put themselves in situations like that, but man, that's a tough situation to be in. So as we think about it, like, how then do we kind of reimagine our reasonings for going to school and the purposes for going to school? Because there's a lot of people who will tell you hear a lot of it in school. If you're in high school, you'll hear a lot of it. If you're an older adult, you probably heard it going through school, and maybe even from your friends and family. Got to go to school, got to get a degree, got to get an education. Well, you know what? Not always. It really kind of depends on what it is that you want to do. I would say that if you have a passion for being an entrepreneur, for example, and maybe you love cooking, maybe you cook very well, and you have dreams of opening up a restaurant, you don't necessarily have to go to school to do that. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be educated about what it takes to open a business, but there are places you can get that information for free on the internet, and that's what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. If you want to be a top class chef, then it would probably do you well to go to school. But another strategy could be getting into a restaurant, working your way up, learning from the people who are the best in their craft there, and being part of that community of chefs and experts. And you will pick up and learn a lot from that. It's kind of a throwback to the way that we used to do things, like an apprenticeship, if you will. So there are places that you can go. There are things that you can do that are not that. So the other thing, sometimes, like, let's say, for example, you're interested in a trade. Absolutely, sometimes you need that trade certification and that trade certificate in order to get into the thing that you ultimately want to do. Sometimes you need to be an apprentice and be part of a union. And then through that mechanism, you can get to ultimately what you want to do. You'll spend a lot less money, and you will make a very good income for many, many years in those fields. So in my mind, there's plenty of options. There's plenty of ways to do things. And in fact, even I tell students that I work with all the time, if you have a knack for numbers, if you have a knack for software, you could learn anything from R programming, R, Ruby, C++, Java, PHP. You could learn all of that through programs, through YouTube videos on the web. Then you've got applications like Salesforce, right? Salesforce has a free website, Trailhead website. You can go and you can learn how to work Salesforce completely for free online training. As a Salesforce administrator, and if you pay to get certified and it's not that expensive to do it, you can make a very nice salary educating yourself and moving yourself in that direction, right? So when I hear this bantering out there about, people saying they want a free education, it's what they need to get a leg up. What you need to get a leg up is motivation and drive and desire. And if you're hungry, if you are driven to want to do something, regardless of whether you're educated in it or not, you just have a drive to do that thing, chances are you are going to find your way into it. And the only thing that is going to stop you is what's in your head, or listening to the people around you who tell you that you're an idiot for wanting to do something that you care about and are passionate about doing. So my advice to you is don't listen to those people. Go do what you want to do. And you don't necessarily need a college degree to get into that. So don't go to school if you don't, if you're kind of feeling like, well, that's the next thing you have to do. Don't go to school if you feel like, well, my parents are telling me I have to do that, or it's kind of the next logical thing. Don't go to school if you think you're going to figure out what you want to do when you get there. The thing that pains me a lot, and look, everybody's got to take their own personal journey. I get that, but why on earth would you go to school for one degree? Like you're focusing on a major, and then you get there and you're like, I'm not feeling it, or it's a little harder than I thought, and so then you switch gears. Like, why did you go in the first place? Why don't you just wait until you know what it is you want to do, and then just go for that? Instead of trying to convince yourself that that's the thing that you want to do. So for all those reasons, and typically, by the way, if that's how you ended up in college, that's typically how you're going to end up in debt, and not having a good ROI strategy. That's how you're going to wind up in a situation where you can't find work. You're not. And by the way, sometimes, I'm not saying this, I'm not painting with a broad brush here, but sometimes the reason folks can't find work when they come out of college and they have a degree, it is entirely because they don't have that fire and that drive to get in front of the right people. By the way, too, if you're hearing this and you're like, you're full of crap, that's not true. I absolutely did everything that I could. I'd love to talk to you. Like, come on, let's have a conversation about it and dig into it, because I get it. It's tough, and sometimes it doesn't happen as quickly as you want it to. But the more you put yourself around the people and around the circumstances that are going to get you to where you want to be, the faster you're going to get there. The more you sit around complaining about how it's everybody else's fault that you didn't get to where you wanted to be, that's exactly the reason why you're not there. You got to move away from that kind of mental blockage. So go to school if you know what you want. Go to school if you know what the ROI is. Getting that degree is going to get you to a certain place. Go to college if, like in the situation I had, I was fortunate that I worked for an organization that provided tuition reimbursement, that offset the cost for me, that gave me that kind of start in the direction that I want to go. Absolutely, if you have a company that is offering some sort of tuition reimbursement, or a reduced cost program, or they're even Walmart and Starbucks, they're even partnering with like Arizona State University and other schools out there. I think Purdue Global is another one that I think Walmart is a part of. There are more and more businesses that are seeing that a educated and skilled, mentally skilled workforce, that's a terrible way of saying it. I don't want to say mentally skilled, but exploring what an advanced degree in business will give you is beneficial for them as a company, because it means that they have more engaged talent, and the more you're kind of aware of how business works and things like that, the more that you're willing to kind of give. And it also opens up, by the way, pathways for you to move up within the organization. Walmart, it's a huge organization, and there are people who can start out in the stock room or as a cashier, take advantage of the free education, make yourself more marketable and competitive, and then leverage everything that you're pulling from that company to go build something better for yourself, right? So, as a guy who started at $5.50 an hour, as a temp working in a call center, but for the biggest global consumer packaged goods company in the world, don't kind of look at what's in front of you and just kind of say, there's nothing there for me. Whatever as a consumer people may say about Walmart, it is a tremendously successful company that makes hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And, yes, they've have their challenges. Every big company does, but there's also a tremendous amount of opportunity. And so never look at that kind of situation as, being labeled as I'm just, right? Everything that you're doing, anything that you're engaged in, there is an opportunity to turn it into something positive and move it in the direction you want. So if you're in that boat, definitely go to college for those reasons. Now, the other thing, for profit or nonprofit, that is something that gets bantered around about. And as somebody who has worked on both sides, I can tell you that in a for profit university, you will get through your degree faster. There's usually lower entrance or even no entrance exams to get in. The success rate, and a lot of times people pick on for profits for that. And I will say the success rate of students in for profit versus nonprofit in that undergrad world tend to be about the same. So it's when people say that you're not getting as much in a for profit education, I will tell you that there is a rigor that you have to have. There is a tremendous amount of reading and writing and teamwork that you week in and week out have to do for 3-4 years. If you're starting at zero credit, it's going to be more on the 4.5 to 5 year side. If you're starting with some credit, you can reduce that down a little bit. But let me tell you something. My students that I've worked with in the for-profit side, those folks work their tail off. They're usually holding down a full-time job. They've got a family. Sometimes they're a single parent. Sometimes they're getting around town on public transportation. And they're still, coming to school and doing that too. For-profits get a knock, but I will say this. There's a lot of rigor in those programs, at least the ones that I've taught in, and also having taught on the nonprofit side, both at the university level and at the community college level. I will tell you that a lot of the materials that I pull from, a lot of the even books that I use, there's many similarities in the two, and so where the value is really is in the mindset of the student. If you are focused on wanting to learn, if you are focused on wanting to get an education for the reasons of expanding your knowledge and wanting to use that expanded knowledge to put it to work to do something that you want to do, then absolutely does not matter, in my opinion, whether you go to a for-profit or a nonprofit. Now, where it can matter, and again, just depends on how you want to do things. Nonprofit universities can sometimes take a little bit longer because the classes are longer. Sometimes they're not structured in shorter terms. You have to go the full semester. It's difficult to take a full load if you're also holding down a job. Sometimes they don't have the classes that you want on a regular schedule, so that can be a challenge. However, it is less expensive. Usually you get a little bit broader support. Like a lot of times in the nonprofit university world, they have a lot of student clubs, a lot of student organizations. There's always a lot of activities going on campus. Some of the challenge can be that if you're an evening and weekend student at a traditional institution, you don't always get the chance to go attend the things, the speaker series and things like that are going on during the day. But in this new world we're in, where everything's kind of going online, thankfully, like you're going to be able to get access to recordings and things like that. So, that's a plus. The other reason why a nonprofit university can be more beneficial for you is sometimes there are professors who are tenured, who are anchored to that school, who have written books, and there is a reason and a purpose you want to go study under that professor because you have a passion for that thing that you're going into. That would be another very good reason to not go the for-profit route. But if you are an entrepreneur, a business student, an accounting student, something where you are just going because there are fundamental rules and laws that you want to learn about. And those fundamental rules and laws, yeah, I mean, if you have aspirations for going to work for Goldman Sachs, then absolutely go get a branded degree from the best university you can think of. If that is not your future, if you're just trying to move up in the organization you're already in, or you just want to get a good job with one of the bigger companies in the city or town that you live in, there's nothing wrong with the for-profit side. It's just that it's more expensive. But the quality of work, the things that you'll learn, yes, sometimes it's fast-paced. You'll go through it very quickly. Sometimes you will feel like you're hooked up to a fire hose of information, and you'll finish a class and be like, what the hell did I learn? Like, that was so much in such a condensed amount of time. And you'll tell yourself this too. I know, I've been there. You'll say, oh, that's okay. I'm going to save this book because I'm going to go back and read it later. I just, don't have time right now. You don't always do that. You want to, but you don't always do that. But at the end of the day, you do have choices, you do have options. And I'm not one. I know there are plenty of people, and there's probably educators out there maybe listening to this and saying, Ben, you're an idiot. It absolutely matters, for X, Y, and Z. I'll tell you, I mean, I'm in the business department in the schools that I teach with. I've spent 25 years in consumer brands. I've worked for multinational, big global companies, and I've worked for small companies. And most of the students I deal with are business students, and most of them will have a job in companies very similar to my own. They're not necessarily going to be an expert in a particular field. It's not like you're going to be of the top 10% of talented people in an industry or in a field. And it's, I'm not knocking that. I mean, I feel very much a part of that under 10%. I don't necessarily think that I have this like Michael Jordan-esque skill that is widely sought after. And, everybody's coming to me for that thing. Now, doesn't mean that I don't put a lot into what I do, and I don't try to be good at what I do. But, the difference between, somebody like me and somebody who's a sought after CEO who gets lured into companies because of the way that they know how to turn an organization around, that's not me. I'm okay with that. I know what I'm good at. I know what I do. I'm very comfortable with that. And I know I can make a good living with where I'm at. And I think that's a lot of the students where that I have encountered over the 15 years that I've been doing what I'm doing. So all of that said, let's say, for example, as we kind of wrap up here, let's say that you don't necessarily want to go to college. Like, you're not looking for a degree. You're not even looking for a certificate. You just have a desire to learn. You just love learning things. Like, maybe you find yourself tuning into TED Talks, or you find yourself listening to a lot of podcasts or books on tape. You just enjoy learning. Love that. And so what I would say to that is, there's a ton of low-cost learning options out there, right? So I've talked about YouTube, very low-hanging fruit. That's easy. But some things that have a little bit of structure to it. So things like Khan Academy. Khan Academy, you can go into, learn a lot of stuff for free. Sure, if you have children or you might have turned to it yourself in a couple classes, it is something that is helpful. There are other things like Udacity and Coursera, OpenEd. All of these things are great. There's usually kind of a broad types of classes that are out there. And there is some structure to it, but it's kind of like pop in and pop out. You don't necessarily have to go along this kind of degreed path. You can just it's learning at your leisure, if you will. And some of those things you do have to pay for, but the cost is very low, in consideration. The benefit is some of these classes are actually taught by, university professors or people who are just, doing a side hustle, and, or it is their primary hustle. It's what they do all day. But They have some experience, they have some credibility and credentials. They're not, necessarily, just off the street people, but they certainly could be as well. So when you do, the Coursera's and the Udacities, you're learning from a broad range of people, and they're not necessarily, they're not instructors that are kind of vetted out. I think it's pretty much, you go in there, you want to develop a course, you can do a course. Other institutions that are out there, we're kind of moving to this massive online learning groups, if you will. Saylor.org, Saylor, SAYLOR.org, and University of the People are two kind of universities that are trying to allow you to go to get some very fundamental knowledge. I would say probably your first 2 years of college at a very low cost. If you want to pay for their testing, there are colleges that will receive the transcripts from these types of institutions, but it's not necessary to even do that. If you just want to go in and learn for the sake of learning, there's a lot of things that you can learn, especially Saylor.org. They've got really a broad course list of things, art history to psychology, sociology, chemistry, business, computer science. There's a lot of things in that school. It covers a lot of different disciplines. And if you want that experience, like, this is great if you've never gone to school, and you're just like, maybe you're apprehensive, maybe you're not sure how it's going to be, maybe you want to see whether or not you have the stick-to-itiveness that's going to put you in school in the first place. And you just want to try it out. You want to test yourself to see how good you can be following a path. Go do Saylor.org. Like figure out what kind of student you're going to be. And if you get through it and you like it and you enjoy it and you're motivated by it, great. Here's the other thing though too. Like, if you do it, find somebody who knows that you're going to be doing it. One of the things that I see where sometimes people cannot do as well is when you try and hide it from other people. And I think it sucks that you feel like you have to hide that you're trying to get more educated around something from people. But I get it. Sometimes you just have a lot of kind of idiot friends in your life, and it's okay. I've had idiot friends in my life too. We don't talk as much as we used to, but you do get those people who will just, why are you going to school? Why are you doing that? Are you trying to be better than us? Trying to be smarter than us? Yeah, because you hate living in shit surroundings and you want to have a better life. That's not such a terrible thing. So, definitely, if you're going to do something like that, let somebody who who wants to see you do well, let them know what you're doing and what you're studying, and, like, report in with them, check in with them. I think it's really important to kind of have, good, positive mentors and influences in your life. So when you kind of go down that path, think about, I heard this one time, it's a great way of thinking about how you kind of structure your friends. You should have a third of your friends who are people who you're trying to emulate. You are inspired by who they are, and so you're trying to get into that atmosphere of living. The other third of your friends might be people who are at your level. They're people who you can be yourself with, who you can, have, good conversations with. And, nobody's trying to outdo each other, but you're all just kind of at that same level. And then the other third of people whom you should know in your life are people who you're trying to help them get to where you are, right? So you're trying to bring them up, or help them and mentor them, coach them, guide them into, kind of a better way, right? So, and that is a pretty good, for me, way of thinking about kind of how to stratify out relationships that you might have in your life when it comes to friendships. Lastly, free materials. So let's just say, look, I don't even know if I want to even go to class yet. I don't even know if I want to go to that structure yet. I just want to read stuff because I enjoy reading stuff. There's a great organization, OpenStax, that creates free textbooks. And I've actually seen universities are moving towards this open source textbook idea. And OpenStax has a lot of textbooks that are out there that can be used. They're a lot of learning, a lot of the knowledge comes out of these textbooks are very similar to some of the bigger publishers that I've used in my own classroom. So definitely a big fan of OpenStax because there's some great information in there. And then OER Commons is another one that you can certainly turn to and learn a few things from there as well. All right, folks, I was kind of hoping, I was thinking that I was going to I was kind of thinking that I was going to, keep this to 30 minutes, but didn't turn out to be that way. All right. So thanks, guys, for checking this out. Thanks for tuning in. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday, Satisfactionist Live, talking about stuff like this. Oftentimes I have panelists, but this time I didn't, so I just thought I would riff and go solo. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the information. If you guys have questions, you want to chime in, leave a note, leave a comment. Love that. Love that you guys are engaged and doing that stuff. And look forward to seeing you back. Check us out Thursday. By the way, Thursday we're going to be talking about mariachi music, which is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to it. I have a very close family connection with our upcoming guest, and mariachi music has been part of my family for many, many years, and just music I listened to all growing up. And so I have some wonderful people that we're going to be talking to on Thursday with that. So with that, thanks folks for checking this out and tuning in. Until next time, we'll see you later. Have a good one.